My dear Wormwood, so you have great hopes that the patient's religious phase is dying away, have you? I always thought that training college had gone to pieces since they put old Slubgob at the head of it. And now I'm sure. Has no one ever told you about the law of undulation? Humans are amphibians, half spirit and half animal. The enemy's determination to produce such a revolting hybrid was one of the things that determined our father to withdraw his support from him. As spirits, they belong to the eternal realm, but as animals they inhabit the world and time. This means that while their spirits can be directed to an eternal object, their bodies, passions and imaginations are in continual change. For to be in time means to change. The nearest approach to constancy, therefore, is undulation. The repeated return to a level from which they repeatedly fall back, a series of troughs and peaks. If you'd watched your patient carefully, you would have seen this undulation in every department of his life. His interest in his work, his affection for his friends, his physical appetites, they all go up and down. As long as he lives on earth, periods of emotional and bodily richness and liveliness will alternate with periods of numbness and poverty. The dryness and dullness through which your patient is now going are not, as you fondly suppose, your workmanship. They're merely a natural phenomenon, which will do us no good unless you make good use of it. To decide what the best use of it is, you must ask what the enemy wants to make of it, and then do the opposite. Now, it may surprise you to learn that in his efforts to get permanent possession of a soul, he relies on the troughs even more than on the peaks. Some of his special favourites have gone through longer and deeper troughs than anyone else. The reason is this: to us, a human is primarily good. Our aim is the absorption of its will into ours, the increase of our own area of selfhood at its expense. But the obedience which the enemy demands of men is quite a different thing. One must face the fact that all the talk about his love for men and his service being perfect freedom is not, as one would gladly believe, mere propaganda, but an appalling truth. He really does want to fill the universe with a lot of loathsome little replicas of himself, creatures whose life, on its miniature scale, will be qualitatively like his own. Not because he's absorbed them, but because their wills freely conform to his. We want cattle who can finally become food. He wants servants who can finally become sons. We want to suck in. He wants to give out. We are empty and would be filled. He is full and flows over. Our war aim is a world in which our Father below has drawn all other beings into himself. The enemy wants a world full of beings united to him, but still distinct. And this is where the troughs come in. You must have often wondered why the enemy doesn't make more use of his power to be sensibly present to human souls in any degree he chooses and at any moment. But now you see that the irresistible and the indisputable are the two weapons which the very nature of his scheme forbids him to use. Merely to override a human will, as his faint presence in any but the faintest and most mitigated degree would certainly do, would be for him useless. He can't ravish, he can only woo. For his ignoble idea is to eat the cake and have it. The creatures are to be one with him and yet themselves. Merely to cancel them or assimilate them won't serve. He's prepared to do a little overriding at the beginning. He will set them off with communications of his presence which, though faint, seem great to them, with emotional sweetness and easy conquest over temptation. But he never allows this state of affairs to last long. Sooner or later, he withdraws, if not in fact, at least from their conscious experience, all those supports and incentives. He leaves the creature to stand up on its own two legs, to carry out from the will alone duties which have lost all relish. It's during such trough periods, much more than during the peak periods, that it's growing into the kind of creature he wants it to be. Hence the prayers offered in the state of dryness are those which please him best. We can drag our patients along by continual tempting, because we design them only for the table. And the more their will is interfered with, the better. He can't tempt to virtue as we do to vice. He wants them to learn to walk and must therefore take away his hand, and if only the will to walk is there, he is pleased even with their stumbles. Don't be deceived, Wormwood. Our cause is never more in danger than when a human, no longer desiring but intending to do our enemy's will, looks round him upon a universe from which every trace of him seems to have vanished, and asks why he's been forsaken, and still obeys. But of course, the troughs afford opportunities to our side also. Next time, I'll give you some hints on how to exploit them. Your affectionate Uncle Screwtape.